Hello, welcome to a press conference at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. My name is Teddy Jimbo. I co-chair the committee that organized this, all the press events at this club, including this one, and I'm your moderator today. And of course, we have a very distinguished speaker, Kenta Izumi. He's the president of the Constitutional Democratic Party, of course. And instead of taking time to introduce his bio, because I'm sure you can find his bio anywhere, I want to just go straight into his speech first. Then we're going to open the floor for Q&A. And please turn off your cell phone if you have one, or put it in the silent mode. And what else do I have to go through? I think that's pretty much it for today. So let's have Mr. Izumi speak for about 20 minutes or so first. じゃあ泉さんよろしくお願い。一言言う？はい。一言簡単にじゃあいいか今のは別に日本語にしなくてね。OK。じゃあand 今日のtoday's interpreter is as always Mary Joyce. So じゃあ泉さんお願いします。はい。
皆さんどうもおはようございます。日本の新しい政権の総理大臣泉健太と申します。どうぞよろしくお願いします。
Good morning, everybody. My name is Izumi Kenta, and I will be the Prime Minister of Japan's new government.
今の自民党政権は機能不全に陥っていると。私はそう今世の中に伝えていますし、現にその状態だと思います。総理大臣以外がですね、頻繁に交代をする、官房長官も変わりました、主要な大臣も、そして自民党の執行部も変わると、そして今また森山文部科学大臣が新たに旧統一教会との関係の問題で、またその大臣の立場を危うくしていると、もう自民党は今ですね、裏金、そしてこの旧統一教会問題、不祥事続きでですね、政権を担う人材がもうほぼ枯渇状態にあると私はそう考えています。
So I believe that the LDP government at the moment is not functioning. This is what I am conveying to the world, and this is indeed the case, that it is actually at the moment. We see the situation of many changes in personnel because of problems going on within the party. Other than the Prime Minister, we've seen change in the Chief Cabinet Secretary, central ministers in the government, and leadership within the party itself. We are also seeing the situation now with the Minister for Education, Mr. Moriyama, is also in a very dangerous or precarious position due to connections to the former Unification Church. So the LDP overall, because of these problems, both with the slush funds or political funding money situation and also the Unification Church, we are seeing that they are really lacking in leadership to be able to carry on the government.
これはもう自民党の安倍派だけの収支報告書訂正の一覧でありますが、それだけでも相当な数ですね。もうそして今自民党の議員の100人近くがこの裏金に染まっている。ですからこれは一部の議員のいわゆる汚職や不祥事ということを超えて、自民党が組織的に違法行為を行う集団になっていたということは明白です。
So here we can see the list of the different funding reports have been submitted just by people from within the Abe faction. We can see the huge number of people included in this list, and indeed in the LDP overall now, the number of parliamentarians who are indeed tainted by this slush funds issue is close to 100 people. This shows that this has gone far beyond exceeding something which is just heart or a small number of people within the party, but it could be said that the institution or the party, the organization overall of the LDP is indeed involved in these illegal actions as a group.
岸田総理はよく信なくば立たずという言い方をします。そして今までの自民党はその後にだから政治の安定が必要だと言ってきた。でも今はそうではないですね。信なくば立たず、まさに自民党がもう立たない状況になってきているということで、この自民党の政権から新たな立憲民主党主導の政権に変えていく。それが私の使命です。
So Prime Minister Kishida is often talking about the need for stability and how it will stand up through this ongoing, the consistency or the stability within the party. However, we can see that this is indeed not the case at all with what is being demonstrated by the LDP now. And this is why I truly believe that it is time for a new government led by the Constitutional Democratic Party.
その意味ではぜひ皆様にですね、自民党のスキャンダルだけを追いかけるのではなく、立憲民主党の政策をぜひ注目をしていただきたいと考えています。
So for this reason, I hope that all of you will follow not only the scandals of the LDP, but you will also put your attention towards the policies of the CDP.
まず立憲民主党にはですね、野党で唯一、ネクストキャビネット、次の内閣が存在しています。でここには、私がネクストキャビネットの次の総理大臣、そして次の官房長官には元厚生労働大臣の長妻昭氏というようにですね、例えば次の内閣の外務大臣には玄葉光一郎元外務大臣でもあります。そういった意味では、立憲民主党にはですね、他の政党と異なるいくつかの特徴がある。それはまず一つは、政権を担い、中枢にいたことのある、経験のある人物を多数揃えているということ、そして他の野党にはないこのネクストキャビネットというのを有し、政府官僚ともですね、良好な関係を保ちつつ、改革を施行しているということです。
Within the CDP, we are the only opposition party who holds our own next cabinet. Of this next cabinet, I am appointed as the Prime Minister. Within this, we also have people who have experience in government, experience in cabinet. For example, the former Minister for Health, Mr. Nagatsuma Akira, as our Chief Cabinet Secretary in the next cabinet. For the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Genba Koichiro, who also has experience as a minister in a past as well. So this is different characteristic of our party in that we have this number of people, numerous people who have the leadership, the experience in these senior positions within the government to take on the positions in this next cabinet as well. We are the only party who has this, and this is therefore positioning us very strongly.
そうした豊富な経験と、そして政権獲得を前提にした組織づくり、これがまず立憲民主党の特徴であり、さらに言えば、我が党にはですね、現実的な政策が用意をされているということを皆様にお伝えしたいと思います。
So we have this next cabinet who holds such wide, broad experience ready to take on government. And the organization has indeed been set up, designed already to have the structures that can do so. Not only this, to go one further, we also have realistic policies which can be implemented in that process also.
立憲民主党は基本的にリベラルな政策を持つ政党であり、そして中道派も含めた、アメリカでいうと民主党に近い存在かもしれませんし、イギリスでは労働党に近い存在だと考えていただいてよいと思います。
The CDP has policies which could be considered broadly as liberal. We would perhaps be similar to the position of the Democratic Party in the United States or the Labour Party in the United Kingdom.
その意味でも政権獲得は十分可能だというふうに考えておりますが、例えば外交安全保障政策で言えば、日米同盟を当然前提とし、そしてこの日米同盟を深化させるということも立憲民主党として、認識をし、またアジア地域における平和安定、一方的な現状変更を許さない、そうした基本的スタンスは立憲民主党も有しております。
And in regards to this, we also have very feasible, realistic policies which could be implemented as government as well. For example, when it comes to foreign or security-related policies, we see the maintenance of the alliance with the United States at the center, but looking at how to further evolve or develop this alliance, and also to look at how to maintain peace and stability in the Asian region without allowing any unilateral changes of the status quo.
また経済ではですね、より分配政策に重きを置く政党でありますが、だからこそ我が国の成長も必要だと考えており、特にまず金融政策で言えば、長年続いてきたアベノミクスがですね、日本の正常な金融の機能を失わせていたということから、我々は市場との対話を重視をした政策の転換ということを訴えてきましたし、そして特に新たな産業という意味では、むしろ自民党の政権の中で従来型産業をなかなか変えられずに、特に脱炭素、そしてエネルギー転換、そういった分野については、むしろこれが自民党政権で遅れることによって、日本の成長が停滞をしてきたと考えています。
And when it comes to economic or financial related policies as well, we see the need for more distribution of wealth. And in this regards, the need to pursue and to have more growth for our own country, Japan, as well. The Abenomics policies in regards to finance, which have continued for long years, have led to Japan losing several of its functions or having negative impact in regards to that. So through close dialogue with the market, we would also see, for example, looking at placing a priority on newer industries, emerging industries. The LDP, it could be said, has been depending on traditional or older industries and not being able to have change, which has led to many of the issues today. In contrast with this, we would look at how to pursue the decarbonization and the energy transition, and indeed it is the LDP's delays in this which has led to the stagnant situation of Japan's economy.
その意味で私は3つを挙げたいと思いますが、まず1つ、自民党はですね、先ほど言ったように古い産業をそのまま維持をする力が強かった。ですから新しい産業に目を向けられてこなかった。まずこの産業の構造転換の遅れが1つ。そして2つ目はやはり多様性を認めてこなかったということですね。我が国においてはまだ選択的夫婦別姓や同性婚が認められておりません。世界の中で活力を持つ方々がこの残念ながら日本を忌避をすると、日本社会では外国人は大切にされない、そういうことも我が国の成長を削いでいると思います。もう一つはまさに今回の裏金の問題で、政治自身が真っ当な政治になっていないと、政治自身の体質改善が遅れている、この3つがですね、自民党から立憲民主党に変わらなければならない大きな理由です。
There are 3 points which I would like to raise as the reasons where we need to have a shift from the LDP to CDP politics. The first is the fact that the LDP has just held on to and had a strong tendency for maintaining the old traditional industries and not paying sufficient attention, not paying attention towards new industries. This has therefore led to a delay, and we need structural changes in the way that industry is existing here within Japan. The second point is its failure to recognize or acknowledge diversity. In Japan, for example, we still have the situation where it is not possible for married couples to select different surnames, where also same-sex marriage is not permitted in the country as well. This has meant that there are people who are not being sufficiently valued within Japanese society, including foreigners as well, which has led to perhaps people having to turn their back, or the society not being fully able to make the most of its situation. And this has led to also a delay of growth, so the lack of recognition of diversity within society as the second. And the third point is indeed the issue of political funds or slush funds as well. This is showing that politics as it stands at the moment is not the decent politics that it should be, and change and reform is needed in regards to this. These are the key reasons why we need to have a change from the LDP to the CDP.
前回の衆議院選挙で立憲民主党は残念ながら議席を減らし、その後政権交代を実現しようという機運の高まるまでには少し時間を要しましたが、しかし今、立憲民主党、全国で174名の衆議院次期総選挙の候補者を定め、そしてこれを可能な限り早期に200以上にしていきたい、最終的には当然、単独過半数を取れる240を上回る議席候補者をですね、揃えていきたいと考えています。
Unfortunately, in the previous House of Representatives election, the CDP did indeed lose seats. Therefore, it took some time to build up the kind of momentum which is needed to achieve a change in government. However, at the moment, looking towards the next election, we now have 174 candidates who have already been confirmed. We are hoping to, in the very near future, bring this to 200 candidates to be ready to stand for the CDP. And in eventually also bringing this to 240, which would be sufficient to obtain a majority just with our own party.
そして、おとといですね、2月4日に我々は党大会を開催をし、そこで新たな目標を党全体で共有いたしました。これは自由民主党、次期総選挙でですね、自由を上回る議席を獲得し、国政第一党になるということを宣言をいたしました。現在はまだ単独過半数の候補者を立てておりませんので、まずは自民党を上回る議席数を獲得をする、そういう中で新政権、新たな政権の主導権を握るというふうに考えています。
The day before yesterday, on February the 4th, we held the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan Congress, and at this we together confirmed new goals which were declared on behalf of the party. And this is in the next general election to obtain more seats than the LDP, and therefore to declare that we are able to become the largest party within Japanese politics. While we still do not have sufficient candidates to have a majority just on our own within the parliament, we are now looking at how to increase this, to move towards this, so that we will be able to take on the role of a new government and have the leadership within.
東西の冷戦は終わりましたけれども、このアジア太平洋地域も中心にですね、世界はまた不安定化をしています。ウクライナ情勢、そして中東情勢、この日本周辺で言えば台湾や北朝鮮の情勢、こういったことを考えていけば、政治が機能しなければならないし、そして世界としっかり連携をせねばならないし、また日本自身が今、経済的影響力を落とす中で、改めて日本自身がですね、アメリカと協力関係も組む、また国でもある我が国が、世界の中でしっかりと存在感を出していく必要があると考えています。
Well, the Cold War may have ended. The world, including particularly here, the Asia-Pacific region, is still in a situation of uncertainty, particularly when we look at the situation now in Ukraine or in the Middle East or in the neighborhood of Japan, in Taiwan or North Korea, the DPRK. When we think about these issues, it is clear that we need to have a functioning politics, and there needs to be also collaboration or cooperation internationally implemented within this as well. While Japan's economic influence may be decreasing internationally, we need to look at how Japan, once again in cooperation with the United States and its allies, can regain its presence in the world and take on this kind of role.
そのためにはやはり日本の国力をしっかり回復させていかなければいけない。しかし自民党の政権では先ほどお話をしたように、多様性を認めない、そして産業の転換を図れない、何より政治が腐っていると、この3つによって日本の停滞を招いてきた。だからこそ立憲民主党自身は、我々の党にさらに新たな仲間を、新たな候補者を集めてですね、より政権を担う人材を増やし、政権を獲得していきたいと考えています。
In order to do so, Japan needs to recover its power as a state within the world again. However, when we look at the situation of the government under the LDP, as we have mentioned, lacking its failing to recognize or to acknowledge diversity, to implement any transition in industry, and also the rotten state of its politics, these 3 points are the situation which has led to the stagnancy of Japan at the moment. This is why now, as the CDP, we are looking to increase our human resources, that is, candidates who can stand in the upcoming election, so that we can indeed take on a change of government.
当面の国会のことを少しお話をしますと、今、この裏金問題を国会で実態解明に取り組んでいます。特に自民党の幹部ですね、安倍派5人衆を含めた8名の今、政倫審への出席を求めています。この中で実態を解明し、この裏金問題を、裏金議員をですね、我々としてはこの国会から一掃しなければならないし、今日も予算委員会で我が党から総理にただしていますが、裏金議員を再び次の総選挙で自民党が新たにまた公認をしてですね、そして選挙に勝てばみそぎが済むというような考え方にはさせない、それを許さないということで、私たちは徹底的に実態解明に取り組みたいと考えています。
And to speak briefly about the situation in the current proceedings of the Diet, of course, there is now the investigation or consideration of the facts surrounding the issue of slush funds within the LDP. The 8 executive members of the LDP, including the 5 of the Abe factors, are now being requested to sit in front of the special committee, and the facts in regards to this are being investigated at the moment. We believe that it is important not only for this, but to also ensure that these people are no longer be able to sit in the Diet as well. Today, our questions will be put toward the Prime Minister in regards to this, but it seems at the moment that the LDP's position is that if the people who are embroiled within this scandal are sitting in the next election, they are appointed and they are indeed elected by the people, then this will be a way that they can absolve what has happened in a way, or they will be permitted then to continue in this way. However, we do not believe that this is in the case. These people, if they are indeed involved within the situation of these slush funds, they should not be remaining in the parliament, and this is why we are pursuing a full uncovering or investigation of these facts.
自民党は巨額の献金、派閥政治、裏金、さらに脱税というところまで今、取り沙汰されている。一方で国民の皆さんは、物価高、そしてインボイス、確定申告、もう1円たりとも税金をごまかすことは許されない国民生活の一方で、自民党の議員は3000万以下であれば立件もされないし、そして自分の懐にお金を納めていても、ばれたら表にすればいいというふうに開き直っていると、こういう政治に対する怒りは必ず高まっていくと感じています。
The LDP has indeed enormous amounts of political funds. It has the issues surrounding the factions within the party, the slush funds, and even issues of tax evasion. However, in contrast to this, how are the people of Japan? They're in the situation where, with the higher increasing cost of living, the invoice system, and also the tax submissions and so on, even 1 yen of false reporting by the Japanese people is something which is not allowed at the moment. Yet, members of the LDP, politicians, if their amounts are less than 30 million yen, then they are not being held to account by the prosecutors in regards to this. They are also almost taking on a position that if they are putting these funds into their only wallet, they only need to talk about this if they're already found out. Otherwise, they can just be quiet and hope that the situation will go away. Therefore, I think that we will see a situation indeed where the people's anger in regards to this situation will continue to increase.
今、野党各党は連携して、この裏金問題の実態解明に取り組んでいるし、この連携は次の新しい政権づくりに向けたきっかけになっていくと考えています。
At the moment, each of the opposition parties are working together in pursuing the facts regarding this issue of political funding. And I believe that this cooperation will indeed form an opportunity toward cooperation toward the formation of the future new government.
各野党は自民党の腐敗政治と、そして日本の経済の停滞を許すのか、次期総選挙で政権を変えるのか、その覚悟が問われている。その状況だからこそ、私は今、立憲民主党の覚悟として、ミッション型内閣ということを提唱しています。
At the moment, the determination or will of each of the opposition parties of Japan is being questioned. Whether they will allow a continuation of the problematic politics of the LDP, the stagnant economy of Japan, or indeed if they will look at how to change this situation. This is what is being questioned, and I believe that the CDP is ready to take this determination and this change under what we are calling a mission-centered cabinet.
私は日本を伸ばす、日本を豊かにする、その旗印でですね、このミッション型内閣に各政党が結集をしてもらいたいと、あるいは政党だけじゃない、各議員たちが結集をしてもらいたいと考えていて、それはやはり今の日本、この子どもたちがどんどん減っていっている少子化の日本において、子育て支援策は極めて重要であるが、自由民主党、岸田政権の掲げる異次元の少子化というのは、それに値しない小規模なものであるし、何より若い世代に希望を与えられていない。だから我々はこの子育て支援、そして教育の無償化、こういった政策を大胆に進めるミッション型政権でありたいと考えています。
And what I believe is necessary to ensure the growth needed in Japan to make a more abundant country is indeed having a mission-based cabinet. And this is something which I hope that the opposition parties and also politicians, parliament members can all come together towards as well. When we look at the decreasing birth rates in Japan or the low number of children, it is important to have policies in place which can support childcare, which can support these issues. However, the policies currently under the Kishida LDP government are only on a very small scale. It is a situation now where the young people of Japan, the younger generation, are not being given any hope. This is why we need very significant or fundamental large-scale policies or reform in regards to child raising, including free education, to be implemented.
大学の授業料の無償化、そして給食費の無償化、また児童手当を第一子から増額をする、こういった具体的な政策もそこには入っていくと考えています。加えて産業という意味では、一つは環境産業、環境エネルギー産業ですね。 そして2つ目は医療の産業、そして3つ目はデジタル産業、そして4つ目は観光産業、こういった分野を重点的に成長させていきたいと考えています。
In regards to these kind of policies, this includes, for example, making university tuition free, also providing free school meals, and also increasing and making available the subsidies from the government for children from the firstborn child as well. In regards to industry, this includes looking at, for example, the environment or energy-related industries, medical or health industries, digital, and also tourism, having a central focus being put on these four industries for future growth.
外交政策は改めて安全保障政策もですが、維持するものは維持をしてよいと考えております。そして、その中でも特に立憲民主党としては、アジアの緊張をこれ以上高めない、そのために全力を尽くすということとともに、特に核兵器については、我々は核兵器禁止条約へのオブザーバー参加、これはドイツと同じように可能であると考えています。
In regards to foreign or security policies, what is existing within Japan's current policy, which is good, should be maintained. As the CDP, we believe, for example, and we would be putting all efforts towards ensuring that there is no further increase in tensions in the Asian region, and having a focus also on the issue of nuclear weapons, including having Japan participate in the meeting of states parties of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons as an observer state. This would be in the same status as Germany, showing that it is indeed possible.
改めてこの我が立憲民主党内閣というのは、ステレオタイプな与党野党の二者対立を皆様には捨てていただきたいと思っています。例えば批判ばかりとか反対ばかりと、そのようによく日本国内では言われますし、そして反米か親米かどちらなのかという二者対立になってしまったり、環境エネルギーについてもですね、原子力賛成か反対かばっかりになってしまいますが、現実は現実として受け止めながら新たな時代に転換させる、これが立憲民主党の真骨頂であり、私はそれがまさにこの日本の国民を幸せにすることができると、一歩一歩理想の社会に向かっていくことができる現実政党である、このことをお伝えをして私からの冒頭の挨拶といたします。
Our CDP's cabinet, in regards to this, I hope that you can get rid of an image of a stereotypical division or opposition between the ruling and opposition parties, of them being in bipolar opposites to each other. It is sometimes, or sometimes we are discussed within Japan as just being critical or in opposition of the government. But rather than this, we are looking at how to create a different kind of step forward, rather than just questioning whether being for or against the US, or whether just being in regards to energy or environmental policies, just being for or against nuclear energy. Rather than this kind of traditional bipolar sort of situation, the CDP is looking at accepting the reality which is existing today, but looking at the same time as how to implement a transition to the new era. This is what we as the CDP believe is necessary in order to achieve the happiness of the Japanese people, and step by step implementing this is what will indeed do so. We believe that this is why the CDP is the realistic, has the realistic party and policies for this future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Izumi. So we're going to go to a Q&A. So please raise your hand, and if you're designated, come forward. There are two microphones up front, and cite your name and affiliation. And let's just have a questions, not the speech, please. And make these questions short because we like to take as many questions as possible. So who's going to start first? Okay, じゃあジムさんどうぞ。
西村フリーランス、Let me ask in Japanese、日本語でお聞きします。国会開催中ありがとうございます。先日の党大会の報道、2点ポイントがあったと思います。一つは、次期衆院選で政権交代を目指すと。この目標ですね、まず、各野党、各党とですね、協議の上で掲げられているのか、あるいは単独なのか、お聞きしたいと思います。もう一点は、150議席、取れなければ代表を辞任するというお考えを示されたと聞いてますけれども、これは要するに勝敗ライン、次期衆院選の勝敗ラインだと思いますけど、これ150取れて、これでも難しい、なかなか厳しい目標だというのは分かります。 取れて、なおかつ政権交代できなかった場合の責任はどう考えているんでしょうか。
はい、
ひとまずね、
よろしいですか。
それで、次の衆院選いつあるかまだ分かんないわけです。とりあえず4月に補選あります。補選の勝敗ラインはどこなんでしょうか。
My name is Nishimura Freelance. I have two questions in regards to some of the major points from the CDP's Congress, which was held on the weekend. The first is you have made clear the goal for achieving a change in government. I would like to ask if this was something which was just decided by the CDP alone, or if this was a declaration made based on consultation with the other opposition parties as well. The second question is that you have also stated that you would step down as president of the party if you are not able to achieve 150 seats in the next election. I'd like to ask what you're thinking is if you do indeed achieve 150 seats, which is somewhat an ambitious goal, but are not able to achieve a change in government, what your view or what your stance would be in that time. And of course, we are not aware yet when the next general election will be. However, the by-elections are scheduled for April, so I'd like to ask where you see the focus of the upcoming by-elections.
はい、まず党大会で私が掲げた自民党を上回る第一党、これは立憲民主党単独で考えているものであって、他の野党について事前に話をしたということはありません。それでよろしいですか。
単独で政権を取る、単独政権を取るというんですか。
我が立憲民主党がこの前の党大会でお話をしたのは、自民党を上回る国政第一党になるという目標です。政権交代はまた別ですね。だから要は党の議席の目標と政権交代を果たそうという目標の2つを掲げております。で、次期総選挙で政権交代を果たそうということについて事前に立とうというのはありません。はい。これがまず一つ。
So first of all, in regards to the understanding of the question was whether it had been discussed with other parties to aim for a change of government. This was not discussed. This was just a goal which was set forward by the CDP alone. However, there was the clarification then as well, which was it was not only about the discussion, or it was not only about discussion about making this goal, but it was about whether it would be coming into the government with just the seats of the CDP, or whether this would be including a coalition, for example, with other parties. And it was made clear that there were two goals which were put forward. One was for the CDP to obtain the most number of seats, making it the largest party within the government. And the second goal to be achieving a change of government. And this was not something which was prior discussed with other parties.
2つ目はですね、政権を、150を達成しても政権を取れなかったらというような話であったかなと思いますが、私の現在の目標は150議席を取れなければ辞任をすると。これが私が言ってきたことでありですね、それ以外は今は何もありません。そして3つ目、4月の補欠選挙はですね、勝敗ラインという言い方はまだしておりません。当然ながらということで、今、候補者を立てている島根1区、長崎3区、ここは勝ちます。勝利を目指していると、今はそこであります。
And in regards to the second question, I have said that if we are not able to achieve 150 seats in the next election, I would step down as president. This remains the same. This is what I have said till now, and this is remains the same, but this is not referring to whether we are able to achieve a change of government or not. And the third question in regards to the scheduled April by-elections, we have not set forward or defined a strict line for where we would declare victory in regards to this. However, we are now in the situation or the state of nominating or appointing the candidates for these by-elections, and at the moment we are setting forth to win in the first ward of Shimane and the third of Nagasaki. These are the two electorates which we have our focus on and where we are aiming to win.
Okay, the gentleman right behind him, and then we got to Tim.
私はピーター・モーレスと申します。本業は弁護士なんですけど、バイトとしてアジアタイムズの記者です。So I'm going to say this in English. So, right. It's my understanding that in 2001, Koizumi proposed universal suffrage, the direct election of a prime minister, and somehow that didn't happen. I'm just wondering, how come that's not on the table now? I mean, the time is ripe, and I mean, Japan can't really adapt unless it has direct elections, because Jiminto has, sorry, I won't give my opinion.
We got it.
アジアタイムズのピーター・モーラズと申します。2001年に当時の小泉さんが提案されたことなんですけれども、日本でも総理を直接的に市民が選ぶという制度を提案されたんですけれども、
首相公選制のことですね。
そうです、ありがとうございます。なぜそのようなことを今こそ必要ではないかと思うんですけれども、そのような制度についての見解をお願いします。
今こそということの理由は、ちょっと必ずしも定かではないので分かりませんが、常にそういう意見、声というのはありますし、特にこの SNS が世に広がるようになってきてから、直接国民が意見を表明する機会が増えてきていると思うので、それも一つの在り方ではあると思いますが、今、私たち立憲民主党は、この議会や議院内閣制の下で、政権を奪取することを目指しているということです。
As to whether now is the time when such a system should indeed be implemented, there are various different opinions about that. This is maybe something which is not necessarily fixed. However, it is indeed the fact that there has been consistently voices or opinions which are suggesting this kind of system to be introduced in Japan. Particularly now with the increasing influence of social media, we are seeing more and more opportunities for citizens to express their opinions directly, for example. And this is indeed one method in which the direct expression of people's wishes or opinion could be implemented. However, as the CDP, we are not promoting or proposing this kind of system to be introduced at the moment, and rather we are looking at how to take on a change of government through the existing parliamentary system.
Okay, next question. Okay, Tim, go ahead.
Tim Kelly from Reuters. Thank you very much for making the time to speak to us today. You talked in your presentation, you talked about the politics of hope. You talked about how the LDP, there was this kind of gap between the people of Japan and the LDP, its lack of attention on diversity and social changes. And, if you look at the support rate of the Prime Minister, it's down like 30%. It's very low. The LDP has been embroiled in scandals, as you pointed out. But then if you look at the polling support rates, your party, you're looking at around 5% public support, which is a lot less than the LDP. So, this is something that's not a feature of Japanese politics now, but has been a feature for a very, very long time, in that a failure of the opposition in Japan to function, to pose a threat to the power of the LDP. I mean, it's been 15 years since the LDP last lost power to the DPJ. So I have a very basic question. If you could have explained to people outside Japan, why isn't your party, why aren't the opposition parties managing to get support from the voters? Why aren't people, if people are looking for their politics of hope, why aren't they flocking to your party? What explains this inability of any other party to dislodge the LDP from power? Thank you.
ロイターズのティム・ケリーと申します。先ほどのスピーチの中で希望の話ですとか、多様性、社会変化、自民党と市民の中のギャップなどについてお話があったかと思います。そして今の総理の支持率が 30% という非常に低い数字となっています。そして自民党のさまざまなスキャンダル問題などもご指摘の通りだったと思います。しかしその状況と同時に立憲民主党の支持率も今5% ほどという非常に低い数字となっています。これは新しいことではなく、日本の政治も長年続いている状況だと思いますが、自民党に対して野党が多くの市民の支持をなかなか得られない、その機能することがなかなか果たされていないということがあります。自民党が今回政権を握ってから15年も経ちます。かなり基本的な質問になりますが、ぜひ海外の人たちにご説明されるような形で答えていただければと思いますが、なぜ日本の野党はなかなか市民の支持を得ることがなかなかできないのかということです。自民党に対して不満がある場合でも、人々がなぜその時に野党、立憲民主党の方に多くの人たちがシフトしないのか、なかなか自民党に対抗するような野党がなかなか日本では生まれないのか、そのような背景にどのようなことがあるのかについての見解をお願いします。
はい、民主主義はヨーロッパから伝わってきたものであると思いますが、日本は長らくですね、江戸時代も含めて一つの集団が 政権を担い続ける、よく我が国でいうお上意識というものがあって、そのお上の下で、庶民が生活をするということを、文化として長らく背負ってきているんじゃないかと思います。ですから思想信条でそれぞれの国民一人一人が意見を持ち、論戦をし、そして勝った方が政権を担うということの、意識や歴史が私はまだ浅いのではないかというふうに感じます。そしてそれは一時期戦後の民主主義の中で、成長していく兆しがあったんですが、特に私感じるのは1970年代ぐらいまでの学生運動以降はですね、日本の教育の中における政治教育が骨抜きになったと思っていて、自らの意見を自己主張しましょうぐらいのところまではできても、政治的意思をですね、世の中に表明する社会というのを作ってこなかったんじゃないかということがまず第一点です。
First of all, democracy is something which, of course, was introduced from Europe for a very long period, indeed, including the Edo era. Japan was under a kind of system where one group was consistently holding the power, what was known as the okami, or the authorities within this, and the people are living under that singular power, which is holding the government or holding the leadership for a very long period of time. This is something which is very long rooted within the Japanese culture. Therefore, when it comes to people making decisions or having debates based on their ideologies or beliefs, having opinions, debating this, and then whichever is winning this debate, then taking on the government, is not something which actually has a very long history here in Japan. I believe that this is indeed one of the factors. When we look at the post-war democracy in Japan, I believe that there was some chance for growth or for some kind of development in this area. And however, since the time of the 1970s, when there was the student movement and so on, education around politics within Japan is something which has not been very strong. Indeed, has been a lot of the content regarding people may be able to go as far as sharing their own opinion on a basic level, but engaging more deeply in expressing political will or decisions and so on within society is something which indeed has quite a recent history in Japan.
同調、圧力、村八分、忖度、いろんな言葉があります。そういったものもある種お上意識に連なる言葉かもしれません。でもう一つはですね、やはり自民党自身が何より主義主張や政治思想の政党ではなく権力党であったと、政権党であり続けるためにいかようにも変わっていく政党であったということだと思います。大胆なのは、田中角栄から三木総理に変わったり、森総理から小泉総理に変わったり、そして、菅総理から岸田総理に変わったりと、政策の振り幅も自由自在、とにかく野党の政策、新しい政策をどんどん党の中に盛り込んで、野党を無力化させると、それが政権維持の秘訣であるということを、自民党自身が学び、また実践し続けてきたということだと考えています。
There are various different expressions in Japan which refer to particular kinds of peer pressure or being excluded from the village, or even sontaku, the word very popular lately, but looking at going ahead with what is assumed that the authorities are wanting to be done. So this is showing, I think, these factors in regards to this culture or this background of Japan. There is also a factor in regards to the LDP itself, in that it is a party but not based primarily on policies, but rather on maintaining authority. And it changes itself accordingly throughout the years based on that, based on maintaining power rather than the policy it is trying to implement. We've seen the changes, for example, from Tanaka Kakue to Miki to Mori to Koizumi, and the differences within policies over those periods, also from Suga to Kishida, Prime Minister, for example. We can see that rather than being based on any particular policies which are held as the center of the government, rather they are even incorporating policies of the opposition, which they see will have support, and making that their own policy, which then makes more powerless the opposition parties as well. And they are seeing this as one of the secrets to maintaining their power.
今、岸田総理が言っている異次元の少子化もですね、 もともとは自民党の政策というよりも、チルドレンファーストというのを言い続けてきたのは野党の政策であったし、過去で言えば、公害、自民党の産業政策によってですね、薬害ですとか公害っていうのはかなり広がった時もあったわけですけども、そこに対して革新の機運が高まると、やはり自民党はその政策を取り込み、野党を無力化させてきたと、この歴史だったと思いますね。
We can see that this is, for example, being implemented now with Prime Minister Kishida's policies around children in Japan. These are largely actually based on what were the former children first policies of the opposition. However, these are now being incorporated as presented as LDP policies. In the past, this was also the same for policies regarding large-scale public pollution, many of which were actually things which occurred because of the industrial policies of the LDP. However, as there was more progressive momentum around these, the LDP was then taking on these policies and putting them as their own, and therefore making the opposition parties powerless in that regard.
Okay, next question. じゃあそちらどうぞ。まず次そちらで。その山口さん。
ロイター通信の梶本と申します。本日はお忙しい中、貴重なお時間ありがとうございました。金融政策について2点お伺いします。まず先ほど代表も批判されました大規模緩和の象徴であるですね、マイナス金利について市場では3月、4月にもう解除されるのではないかという、そういう見方が台頭してますけれども、改めましてマイナス金利、これは物価高、あるいは輸入コストを通じた物価高の一因にもなってたと思うんですけれども、このタイミングでマイナス金利を解除するということについて、泉さんはどのようにお考えなのかということが1点と、あと黒田さんの大規模緩和が残したレガシーというかですね、についてどのようにお感じになっておられるのかということと、その後引き継がれた植田総裁のですね、これまでの金融政策の舵取りについてどのように評価されるか、この2点についてお願いします。
はい。
My name is Kajimoto of Reuters. I have two questions regarding finance policy of Japan. The first is looking at negative interest rates, looking at, for example, the situation now of the increase in cost of living and the situation of the Japanese yen, for example, but looking at what is also coming up in March and April in regards to this. I'd like to ask if you think that now is indeed the right timing to end negative interest rates in Japan, or what your position in regards to this is. The second point is regarding the former governor of the Bank of Japan, Mr. Kuroda, how you view the legacy that he has left from the policies which are implemented under his watch, and now the current handling of the situation by current Governor Ueda.
まず一番最後のご質問の植田総裁についてはですね、私は難しい中でよく努力をされているというふうに思います。アベノミクスからの脱却、出口っていうのは本当に難しいものですし、慎重にも慎重を期さねばならないし、また長期の時間を要すことですので、簡単ではない。だけれども、その中で少しずつ、それはスピードをもう少し上げても良いのではないかとも思う時もありますが、しかし方向性としては努力を続けているというのは私は感じております。
As to the second question in regards to evaluation of the current handling of Governor Ueda, I think that within extremely difficult situation or circumstances at the moment, he is making good efforts towards this discussion or this direction. Having a breakaway or exit from Abenomics is something which will be extremely difficult, and it will also be something which will take a very long period of time. It is not simple. So the little by little steps which are being taken under the leadership of Governor Ueda at the moment, while at times, sometimes I do think that they could indeed be faster, I do think that he is making certain steps in the right direction, and positively evaluate in that regard.
この金融緩和のレガシーということで、よく言われますけれども、やはり成長産業を作ってくることができなかったということは、私は大いに反省するべきところだと思うし、その金利が低くても設備投資が進まなかった あるいは企業の新陳代謝が遅れたということについてはですね、金融を緩和さえすれば設備投資がどんどん増えるだろうというふうに過度に期待をしすぎたのではないかと。もっとやはり新しい産業にしっかり目を向けて、国としても支援をして投資を促さなければ新しい市場のイメージがつかめない状況でただ金融緩和だけが進んでしまったというところであったと思います。そして一番最初の質問のマイナス金利については、今アメリカも金利をどうしていくかというのは非常に不安定な時期まだ見えてこないので、今の私としては言及は避けたいと思います。
In regards to the legacy of the easing of the interest rates or the policies which were implemented under the former governor of the bank, I think that what we need to look back upon with regret is the fact that there was not a creation of growth industries under this policy as well. If there could be low interest, but looking at having at the same time investment in these kind of facilities or industries and so on, this would be one thing. However, if you're just having an easing of the interest rates without having this kind of investment or without looking at how to do this proactively, this is something which was perhaps too highly expected in regards to this. The fact that there was not attention directed towards these new industries or promotion of investment into them meant that this has led to the situation now. There was not this clear image that was held up of these new industries then as well. In regards to the negative interest rates, this is also something which is, of course, very uncertain or unclear at the moment under debate within the United States as well. And because this is something which is uncertain or underway at the moment, I would like to refrain from a direct comment on that.
Okay, next question. じゃあどうぞ。はい。山口さんね、その後。
PCCIJ メンバーの利根川と申します。冒頭、ネクストキャビネットのお話で、また議席を獲得しなくちゃならない、で当然選挙にも勝たなくちゃならない、でちょっと中長期の視点からのちょっと質問なんですけども、例えばやっぱり若者の投票率、若者を支持を得ていくと、で実際今、20代の人たちで32、3% ぐらいかなと、で全体で見ればやっぱり52、3% の方が投票してらっしゃる。そうすると、そういう中長期に見て、若者、特に20代の人たち、30代にしても、そういう方たちのファン層をやはり、泉代表としてですね、中長期に見てですね、ぜひ獲得していっていただきたいと。でないとなかなかという、そういう戦略について、ちょっと現状を教えていただければ。
はい。
I'd like to ask a question in regards to, you mentioned the next cabinet, the seats, and having a winning in the next election and so on, but I would like to ask a somewhat mid to long-term question in regards to this, and this is in regards to support from youth. We see there is very low voting rates of youth in Japan at the moment. For example, for people in their 20s, it is around 32 to 33%, or the overall voting rate's only 52 to 53%. So in the mid to long term, what do you see as policies or what to do to obtain the support and also increase the voting of young people in their 20s and 30s?
はい。若い世代の支持率調査っていうのはいくつかあるんですけども、実は高校生に授業ですとかで、各党のマニフェストを読んでいただくと、立憲民主党の支持率は結構高く出るんですね。一方で SNS だとかでの平時に行われる世論調査でいくと、これ立憲民主党の SNS 対策がまだ弱いのか、他党の SNS 対策が進んでいるのかということも含めて、政党の規模にかかわらず進んでいる政党の支持が高いというのを強く感じます。その意味では一つ立憲民主党としては課題なのはこの SNS 対策ですね。これを重視をしなければいけないと思っています。
There are various different surveys which are looking at the support from people of the younger generations that exist in different ways. For example, one survey which was conducted of high school students looking at their support or their evaluations after reading the manifesto of each of the political parties actually sees a very high support from them of the CDP after reading the different policies. However, if we look at the different surveys which are taken on a day-to-day basis on social media and so on, we perhaps see a different story. This could be related to perhaps weak policy or usage of social media by the CDP, or it could be more advanced usage of social media as a tool by other parties, for example. But we see those parties which are more successful on social media then leads to or is connected to higher support rates there as well. So I think that looking at how communications or social media policies as the CDP is an area where we need to pay attention.
特に多様性のところでは、立憲民主党の政策に若い世代が一番フィットするんじゃないかなと思うんですね。そして特に先ほどお話しした子育て支援、若者支援というところでは、岸田総理の側が子どもが生まれてから、しかも3人目からの子どもの支援に比重が今置かれているんですけども、我々の訴えている子ども若者支援というのは、むしろ結婚する前の若い世代の待遇改善、働き方改革、そして可処分所得を増やすということに重点を置いているので、そういった意味でも支持を得られる政策は揃っていると思うので、これをあとは直接的に私自身も若者たちにですね、どんどん訴えていきたいと思っています。
Especially when it comes to diversity, I think this is an area where the policies of the CDP are indeed the best fit for young people. As we mentioned, looking at, for example, policies around child rearing or youth. If we look at the policies of the Kishida government, they are looking at mostly policies that are to be implemented after the birth of children, and particularly with an emphasis on from the third child on. However, our policies are even looking at earlier than that, looking at before marriage, looking at how to improve the working conditions of young people, their income situation, and so on as well. Therefore, I believe that we do already have the policies in place which are suitable to gain the support of young people. And what is needed now is for us, including me, also to go out and to convey these and appeal about these directly to young people.
ヨーロッパでは当たり前ですけども、政党の若者組織ユースですよね。でこういうものも党としてはもっと大きくしていきたいですし、私自身もまさにそうですね、20年25年前ぐらいですけど、大学生で当時の民主党の組織の中で役員に入らせてもらったことがあるので、地方組織ですけども、そういうことも日本のこれからの立憲民主党としては当たり前にしていきたいなと思っています。
And one thing which is very common within Europe, for example, is having the youth branches of political parties and youth involvement from an early time in political and party activities as well. I personally also, about 25 years ago, as a university student, was first involved in the then DPJ's local branch of the executive of the youth branch of the party at that time, and that was my entrance into politics in that sense. So as the CDP, we want to look at how to increase this kind of youth branch or youth involvement within the party and make this something also commonplace or taken for granted here in Japan as well.
Okay, 山口さん、じゃあ最後に。泉さん has agreed to stay a little bit longer over time, so.
すみません。AP 通信の山口と申します。今日はありがとうございます。今の質問にも少し関係するんですけれども、先ほどからも与野党が政権交代がなかなかうまくできず、その切磋琢磨の緊張感ある政治が日本でずっとできていないという課題についてなんですけれども、もともとその政策の討論をしないという文化の上に自民党が与党が提案されたその政策も全部取り込んで無力化してしまっているというような状況の中で、立憲民主党のたくさん良い政策がある中、それをどのように差別化して、そして訴えていき、無党派層もたくさんいらっしゃると思うんですけれども、これをどのように増やして支持を伸ばしていくかということをお聞きしたいと思います。よろしくお願いします。
Everything, you can summarize the question.
My name is Yamaguchi of AP. In relation, you mentioned about the cultural aspects of why opposition is perhaps not have been successful in Japan. But within this as well, I think that if we could look at the CDP, there are indeed many positive policies which are already existing within your platform. But how are you looking to differentiate these, to appeal these and increase the support through that?
はい、これは本当にいろんな野党政治家がチャレンジをして簡単ではなかったことですが、それでもですね、まず国民の皆様に意識を変えていただく、それは選挙の時に宣伝を見るのじゃなくて、政権については、現政権については過去の実績を検証するという文化をちゃんと作んなきゃいけないと思いますね。例えばさっき総理大臣が大胆に交代させられるのが自民党の特徴だという話をしましたけれども、これは目先を変えるという意味では非常に有効な手段であり、それを繰り返してきているんですが、その目先を変える手段に国民が乗ってはいけないということですね。安倍さんと菅さんが行ってきたこわもての政治が岸田さんになって途端にソフトに見えて、すべてを許してしまうかのようなですね、そういうことではなくて、過去の失われた30年の大半の政権を担っていたのはどこなのか、そしてドイツよりも GDP が下回る国になったのはどの政権なのか、一つ一つどの時期に何が起きたのかということを国民がこの政権の評価に使うということをですね、もっと私は広げていかなきゃいけないと思います。でもう一つは当然ですが、野党自身、立憲民主党自身が、いかにその自民党を追及している姿だけではなく、立憲民主党自身の政策を皆様に前面に押し出すことができるか、ここにかかっていると思います。
Until now, there have been various different opposition policies who have tried to deal with this kind of challenge, and it has shown that it is indeed not something which is easy. However, even so, I think what is first done, we need to look at how to change the way that the public look at things as well. That is not only looking at the time of election at what is being promoted by the different politicians or parties and making their decision based on that, but rather looking at the past track record of the current governments as well. For example, if we take the LDP, I mentioned before about the many changes of who is prime minister within the time of the LDP. Well, this kind of changes is something which they are implementing, which is perhaps effective in the very short-term, immediate sense. Rather than this, we need to look at, well, should the people really be going along so easily with a government which makes such constant changes in its leadership, in the prime ministership as well? For example, we saw the policies or the situation under Prime Ministers Abe and then Suga. Then as soon as Kishida takes over, all of a sudden, well, it's the same policies. It may be looking or appearing to be more soft to the people, and people are accepting, allowing anything to go under that different impression there as well. If we look at the so-called lost 30 years, we need to think about who was indeed in charge at the different times within that as well. Who was in government at the time when Japan's GDP became less than that of Germany? Who was it? Or which party was in power at the times when various things have happened throughout history as well. I think that the people should be looking at using these kind of things to evaluate the different parties as well. And the second point, as well as this, we need to also, as the opposition, as the CDP ourselves, look at how we can ensure that we're not just being seen as chasing after or pursuing the LDP, but rather how we are proactively promoting our own policies to the people in a positive way.
さっきお上意識という話をしましたが、本当にひどいもんで、経団連なんかもですね、各党の政策を評価すると言いながら、実際には自由民主党を10年間、1党だけ評価し続けている状態です。で、今日皆さんに紙を配ったのはですね、この政治と金ということでもう少しお話をしようかなと思ってたんですが、この経団連の1993年、これは平岩外資会長の時のですね、企業献金に関する考え方、この時にもやっぱり政治献金が腐敗を招くこともあったので、今後、この後に政党助成金もできるわけですが、企業献金に依存しない仕組みを確立する必要があると言ってきたわけですね。自民党の政治改革大綱のことがよく持ち出されますが、経済界も今、自民党だけにと言っていいでしょう、24億円ものですね、献金、多額な献金を行い、それが自民党の腐敗の温床になっている、 派閥だけの問題じゃないですよ。経団連の巨額な献金、大手企業の巨額な献金が自民党の腐敗の温床になってますよ。そういうものも権力基盤を不公平に強くしてしまっているので、これはやはり経団連には廃止を求めたいし、この93年当時には特別委員会も設置するということが書いてありましたが、ぜひですね、そういう検討を経団連自身が行うべきだと考えます。
And also regarding, I mentioned about Japan often following just the single authority or what the authority is saying. I would like to bring up the problem of Keidanen or the Japan Business Federation as well. Every year they say that they are conducting an evaluation of the respective parties or party policies, platforms. However, for the past 10 years, it has only been done of the LDP, actually. One of the papers which we distributed today was, if looking at or anticipating speaking more about the issue of public funds or the slush funds, was a document issued by Keidanen or the Japan Business Federation in 1993, at the time when it was Hiraiwa in charge at the time. This was indeed looking at the issue of corporate funds or corporate donations to political parties, and speaking of the need to ensure or to shift from being dependent on such issues as well. This was something which was already raised in this issue. However, we see the situation now where the business world's complicity in regards to its large amounts, enormous amounts of donations which are being made to the LDP from Keidanen and from the various corporate members of this are indeed forming a breeding ground for the different kinds of scandals and situation we are seeing now surrounding the slush funds issue at hand at the moment, and creating also an unfair platform or unfair grounds between the different parties as well. So I would like to call on Keidanen, call also for the getting rid of this system as well, and also they within this document are promoting the establishment of a committee in regards to this, and I hope this is something that they will consider today as well.
Okay, thank you very much. 泉さん、じゃあこれで一応会見は終わりなんですが、最後に一つだけいくつか質問があったんですに関係してたんですけどもね、ぜひ泉さんから最後に言っていただきたいのは、要するに日本、政治改革も大事だし、それからもちろん多様性も大事だと思いますが、なんといっても今日本が直面する一番大きな問題は、30年間全くほとんど成長もない、世界で本当に日本と北朝鮮だけだと言われてますけども、っていうような状況にずっと日本が置かれていて、90年代の中頃には1人当たり GDP 世界1位だった時代もあったのに、今はもうほぼ全ての指標で OECD の最下位グループまで落ちているという中で、立憲民主党が政権を取ればこれをどう変えてくれるのか、つまり日本を再び本当の意味で輝く国にすることができるのかどうか、でそれをどうやってやろうと思っているのか、そこのメッセージを最後に一つお願いできますか。
I'd like to ask one final message, which is in relation to some of the points which have already been touched on today. Of course, political reform and diversity are both important. However, the biggest challenge which is being faced by Japan now is the fact that there has been indeed no growth for the past 30 years. It's said that the only countries experiencing this are Japan and the DPRK. We see that compared to the mid-90s, where Japan was #1 in GDP and so on. However, now in almost all indices, it is one of the lowest within the OECD countries as well. I would like to ask, if the CDP does indeed take on the government, if there is a change and you are in power, what will be different? If you could share your message in regards to that.
もう長年着続けてきた自由民主党という古い服を脱ぎたい。皆さんもそう思いませんか。もうとにかくこの古い服を脱がなきゃいけないんですよ。そして古い服を脱いで、今世界でやはり当然流行っている服もあるでしょう。そしてもっと機能的な服もあるでしょう。そういった新たな服に着替えるということが大事だと考えています。
It is now the time, I think, that we need to shed the old clothing, the old outfit that has been worn for so many years of the LDP. Don't you all also think so? It is now time to shed this. In the world, there are many different new kinds of outfits, new kind of clothing, some which may be trendy, some which may be much more functioning. It is now time to shed this old outfit, which has been worn for so many years, and take on wearing something new.
日本では有名なユニクロというファストファッションもありますが、もちろんユニクロに限らずですね、世界中の方々の服装も変わっているようにですね、日本の政治も変わらなきゃいけない。それは先ほど私がお話をしたようにですね、特に環境エネルギー分野、 そして、医療ですとかライフに関わる分野ですね、人間の生活に関わる分野、そしてデジタル、そしてローカルと、我々はこの4分野を重点分野と言っていますけれども、こういった分野は我々立憲民主党から見ても大きな成長の可能性のある分野で、そこにしっかり投資をして、また世界からも呼び込む、投資を呼び込むことによってですね、日本というのは治安も良いし、また住みよい環境もありますから、本来であればもっと魅力的な国内市場も作れるし、そこから世界に対してさまざまな新たな商品や技術を生み出すことができる、その力は私はあると思うんですが、何よりこの自由民主党のすべてを利権化してしまう政治だとか、あるいは既得権を守る政治によって改革が阻まれている、変革が阻まれていると思っています。
In Japan, there is, of course, the fast fashion brand Uniqlo, but not limited to that, but looking at things which people all around the world are wearing new things now, are having new outfits, new ways of doing things. And Japanese politics also needs to change in this way as well. There are particularly 4 major areas which we as a CDP believe there needs to be this change. That is the environment or energy related policies, medical or life related policies that is directly connected to people's lives, digital and also local. As a CDP, we see great potential growth in each of these 4 areas. What is important is how to have robust investment in these and also then to attract this kind of investment from internationally as well. Japan is a place which is very safe to live in, which also has very good living conditions. Therefore, it should be possible to make it a much more appealing domestic market in regards to this as well. We do have the capacity to have both the products and the technology which can be appealing to people around the world. However, under the LDP, the existing interest and looking at politics which only protects these kind of vested interests is what has obstructed Japan from fulfilling this potential.
やれることは本当にたくさんあって、今私が東京で住んでいる宿舎も非常に熱効率の悪い建物ですけども、断熱化ですとか省エネ化っていうのは日本中の住宅で進めることができるし、再生可能エネルギーをもっと増やすこともできるし、そして我が国の重工業や基幹産業を含めて脱炭素をもっと進めて世界の投資を呼び込むこともできる。もうたくさん成長させられる種は我が国にあるわけですが、何よりそれを阻んでいるのは自由民主党です。
There is much which can be done. If we look at even in the place where I'm living here in Tokyo, the Diet Members' Quarters is a place where for example, is very bad. The energy efficiency, they're protecting the heat from the outside and so on. There is much which needs to be done in regards to these kinds of technology in Japan, making much more efficient in regards to energy use as well. There is much potential, many things which already can be implemented and done. However, what has been stopping this from being achieved has been the LDP.
そしてこの日本の子どもたちの教育水準というのは私は世界の中でも高い方であると思いますが、一方で社会に出ると途端にジェンダー平等指数が落ちてしまう国です。企業の中でもまた政治の意思決定の中でも当然役所の中でも女性がまだ活躍できる状況になっていない。女性というのは一つの象徴であって、女性に限らず多様な性の価値観を持った方や、その選択的夫婦別姓を求める方などもみんな生きづらさを抱えて、この国でですね、持てる能力を発揮できずにいる。ここにも自民党の古い価値観が大きくのしかかっていると感じています。
In Japan, I do believe that the overall education standards for children are high when looked at global levels. However, the minute people enter society, we see the gender equality indices, for example, dropping extremely low. We see very few women being able to be in decision-making positions, whether in corporate or political, in municipalities, and so on as well. Gender equality or the role of women is but one symbol. It's not limited only to women, but people with different diverse values in Japan are not able to, or feeling various difficulties in living, not able to fully fulfill their or express their full potential. And this is also seen, for example, looking at even the issues of the not being able to take on different surnames after marriage. So these are things which it is the old or these traditional way of doing things of the LDP which has been obstructing and preventing Japan from taking this step forward.
だから立憲民主党が変える。だから立憲民主党が政権を取って国民の持っている能力を大いに発揮をしてもらう。 そうすることによって日本は、私は明るい未来へと歩んでいくことができると思っています。
This is something that the CDP will change. The CDP, through taking on government, will be able to create a kind of future where people can express and fulfill their full capacity, where Japan will be able to walk towards this bright future.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Izumi. And the very, very last of all, one favor I have to ask you. 水見政権ができた日にはですね、総理大臣としてぜひ FCCJ に来て会見をやっていただけますか。自民党政権はですね、事前に質問が出て提出されたも出ない会見というのは基本的に受けないので、全然来ていただけないので、泉政権ができたら、それをお願いできますでしょうか。
Of course.
And the last question was confirming on the day that you do become Prime Minister, we'd like to confirm that you will come back and speak here at the FCCJ as Prime Minister at that time, unlike the LDP who is doing that. And the answer was, of course.
Thank you very much. I'd like to present Mr. Izumi the one-year guest membership. これ1年間のゲストメンバーシップ。ぜひこれを持ってこちらでまた食事なり飲みになってきてください。
ありがとうございます。どうもありがとうございます。
Okay. Thank you very much, and please remain seated until the speaker leaves the premise. Thank you. Press conference adjourned.